All right, we are live on Facebook and Instagram, simultaneous, and also my Telegram. And I would like to say straight out the gate, be careful of who you're following because there are a ton of fraudulent accounts out there, especially one that's on YouTube now. There's a YouTube channel that removed one of the T's out of Rattle Trap, all right? And it's one thing if you were just sharing my content, because there are cases like where people will put up a George Strait song or someone like that, but that's all they do. But this particular account on YouTube not only removed a letter from my name, which they had to do, but also underneath my videos with 16,000 subscribers, all right, they put up fraudulent Telegram accounts and emails. That is when you know they're a fraud. They're a scam and a fraud. All right. It's one thing if you share my content, that's fine. That's why it's got a share button. It's another thing when you copy and paste my intellectual property like some do out there. They take everything that I write, copy and paste it, make it look like they wrote it. That is a fraud and a scam. That's plagiarism, fraud, scam. Especially when they go add a channel that's fake and fraud, and an email that's fake and fraud. So be careful, and if you would, go to YouTube. All right, it's R8, you'll see it. They removed one T, Rattle Trap 1776. They removed a T, all right, out of Rattle. If you would, go report that page, all right, as a impersonator and a fraud. And the more who do it, the better it helps with YouTube. All right, so again, there's a fine line between sharing content and wanting the world to know what you're supposed to know and can know versus making people think that you're me, all right, and leading people somewhere, telling God knows what they're messaging these people. Everyone who's been following me now for over 3.5 years, you know good and well that I don't have any subscriptions, all right, I don't do subscriptions. I also don't ask for money. I don't put up donation links and things of that nature. I don't do that. I also don't talk about monetary. I don't talk about QFS and all these other things. I don't talk about your wallet and all that other stuff. That's your business. All right? And I always say, until the man with the plan tells you to do what to do with whatever it is, then, or you vote on it, then that's none of my business. All right, I have people all the time messaging, asking about, finances and banks and this. It's not my wheelhouse. All right, I do have an MBA. Yes, I do know finance. Yes, I know all that. But that's not what I talk about. So we need to have a little quick foundational talk while we're on this topic. All right, what my pages are for. A lot of people flooded over. So to the original OGs of 1776 Nation and Rattle Trap 1776 Nation and Rattle Trap 1776, to the OGs, hey, I know it sucks whenever you're blowing up or it gets bigger and it's growing. It kind of stinks because you'll have the riffraff you got to deal with. All right, but we do our best to manage that, and we block as much riffraff as possible because my pages are not here for you to come over here and get in the chatterbox and argue with each other, fight each other, etc. There's one thing with correcting someone, absolutely, let them have it. But there's another when you're just arguing over things and don't even read the post. All right, read the post. Now, you remember the old game Simon Says? Well, that's what it should be like. Simon Says. You should read first. My pages are here to help you think critically, strategically, sharpen your skills, or elevate your skills, and also both. My page is not here to be some drama and propaganda page. I'm a retired veteran, all right? That simple. I love what I do, and I've been asked and called into a position that I accepted, and I love it. But I stay in my lane. I know what I'm talking about. I have not been wrong yet. I have the only #1 best-selling books that talk about the 45-47. I'm the only one with it. And because President Trump signed an executive order for intellectual property, therefore, that means what? I will be the only ones with those. I'll be the OG, the original, The book's already out there. They're already in circulation. Those books, here's part one right here. These books stem from my documents that I wrote and published in January 2021. People call them the documents, the documents.info. Still up to this day, free. On my dime and my time. All right, because I was cut short in the military. I already know that. I know what happened with me, but I am retired military. All right, and there's a reason why I retired early. And only I know that. And a couple other people know. All right, and every day that I get to live and breathe on this earth, I'm going to treat it as if there's still left on my contract. So see, everybody has a purpose. A lot of people don't find their purpose. A lot of people, you're just existing. You're just living and existing. You ain't found your purpose. I'm not here to put you down. I'm not here to call you dumb and stupid just because I want to. I don't want to do that. I use those terms because sometimes it wakes you up. Sometimes you need a little fire under your rear end to wake you up. All right, so everybody needs a little kick in the ass every now and then. We do. Everybody's had one. That's what the military is all about as well. Everybody has to have a little nudge, a little kick in the butt every now and then. All right, it's called tough love. A lot of you have forgotten that. A lot of you have gotten away from that. You've gotten spoiled, lazy, relaxed, and you've forgotten that. I'm here to remind you of that. All right, so, you know, we have people who think that military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military strategies, and military tactics are conspiracy theories. That's how lazy, spoiled, but you have to use the terms dumb and ignorant and also stupid, depending on how bad the comment is. That's how lazy, dumb, stupid, and ignorant we've gotten in this nation. To think that the military doesn't work with some foundation, some orders, some principles, standards, etiquette, protocol, rules, procedures, strategies, and tactics. Same thing with government. Now, I'm not a big government fan, never will be, won't ever be, because that goes against our foundation. But we do have to have a government. It needs to be small. We the people, though, are the government. We the people. See, our founders started the Revolutionary War for taxation without representation. Now we have representation, but we have Americans who don't know how to control those representatives. They are called a representative for a reason. They represent us. So if you get your panties in a wad because of Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk and then say some bull crap that I riddle in circles and I jealous and all these other things, you will be blocked. You can go on with your drama, cesspool, and brown nose yourself right on over on Fox News and all these other channels and get yourself lost over there in the jumbo and the distraction pieces. Go on over there. They're there for you. See, most of you are here because of what? Your comments can be seen here. But no, you forgot who holds the magic wand over here. I do, and my team does. We want you here for the right reasons, but if you're going to be that, and you're not going to elevate your thinking, and you're not going to go get on a foundation of which every single American needs to be on, then you can go somewhere else, and you can have it the hard way somewhere else. Because history is going to account for this dash. History is going to account for 45-47. History is going to account for it. It is unique for a reason. President Donald John Trump is not the end-all, do-all. The military is. The foundation of this nation is the end-all, do-all. The origin of this nation is the end-all, do-all. President Donald John Trump put his face, name, brand, image. Someone had to be the face. Someone had to be that president. But he was an outsider for a reason. Not in the military for a reason. And not in government for a reason. A sole neutral person. Somebody had to be that. So a lot of you are looking for truth in all the wrong places and all the wrong faces. The Johnny Lee song, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places from Urban Cowboy, swap out the words. Some of you are still, you're just looking for truth in all the wrong places and faces. And you'll rabbit hole this and you'll think this. You have no foundation. No foundation. Some rabbit holes matter, some don't. Some don't for the sake of the future. We're fighting for the future. We're not fighting for the past. The past is the past. You can learn from the past, but we cannot move forward in the future if you don't have a solid foundation in your origin, in your history of this nation, how it functions and how it operates. What is your civic duty? What is your civic power? What is your civic authority? A lot of you don't even know simple civics because you don't know simple military and simple government and then how they pair. Your rights don't mean a thing if you don't know how those operate and function. That's how your rights have been squandered for so long. That's why you've been duped for so long. That's why you look atrocious right now. Because of that. And you still just want to be in comment, page, account. If I were commander-in-chief, I would wipe the freaking internet out. You want to talk about pandemonium and chaos? There would be pandemonium and chaos because you wouldn't have a single freaking page. You'd be finding out what a town hall is again and what a city council is again. And your happy asses, if you cared, you'd be down there. You wouldn't be on no comment box being a little keyboard warrior. There would be no rabbit hole in here and here. You wouldn't have access to Google. You wouldn't have access to anything. The only thing you'd have access to is your vehicle, gas stations, and a town hall. Don't vote for Derek Jonhson. If you ever see me on any kind of ballot, don't vote for me. I can tell you what it's going to look like under me. You think the liberals call President Trump a dictator? You want to see a dictator? That's what I would be. We would go straight back to 1775. We wouldn't even go back to 1776. Oh, hell no. We'd be going back to before the Declaration of Independence. We would see how bad some of you want to get in the freaking comment box and make stupid, atrocious comments, not elevating yourself, staying in the same rut, and all you're doing is an injustice and a disjustice to the United States military as a whole, veterans as a whole, and every memorial grave across this country. That is what you're doing every time you make a stupid, foolish comment that has a solid blueprint answer to it with the 45-47. The whole reason President Donald John Trump is here. Oh, Donald Trump died in a helicopter crash in 1989. All these people, all they do is play on your emotions and your feelings. You have to escape your emotions and your feelings. You have to divorce those. You have to get to a solid foundation. And a lot of you claim to be Christians. What's the Bible talk about building your house on shifting sands? Where's the principles at here, people? And you're getting mad because you can't handle unconventional warfare, irregular warfare? You can't handle the fact that it's that simple. It is that simple. President Trump said the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. And so many people are just going to page after page after page after page after page after page. Name, face. There is a blueprint. And see, the problem is so many Americans, you haven't heard so much truth in one video. So much knowledge in one video. And that's what God did when he brought me on the map. In one video, I laid out all of the laws and orders invoked in one video. It's all you need. That is what President Donald John Trump is the face of. That's what he's operating with. That's what he's working with. It's a blueprint. And if he didn't have a blueprint of laws and orders, then guess what? We would never achieve. We would never achieve to drain another swamp because guess what the swamp would say? Is that we loopholed things. We cheated. We plagiarized. We cut corners. We did not do that, and we're not doing that. 45-47 is no loopholes anywhere. It's tight, sealed, front, back, middle, diagonal, forwards, backwards, side to side. No loopholes. It had to be done this way. We want the deep state. You want to hear liberals out there saying, oh, our democracy is being destroyed. You want that. We're not a democracy. Anytime anyone uses the word democracy and constitution anywhere in the same sentence or paragraph or conversation, they automatically timestamp themselves and stamp themselves not knowing anything about our origin or our history. Our founders talked about this in the Federalist Papers, how democracies are dangerous. That is why we are a republic. That is why Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution says Republican form of government. So a lot of you are still not learning the term discernment. You're not discerning things. You're still staying in your bubble, on your ground, on your terms, in your thoughts, and you want this the way you want it. That is not how a team operates. It's not. See, and people like Charlie Kirk, he talked about things with your personal lives. He talked about things like abortion, gay marriage, and things like that. We cannot have a functioning society until every American knows the basic core principles of military and government, our origin, our history, the three branches of government, legislation, acts, bills, etc. All those other things are always going to stir up controversy because that's exactly what they bring about. Now, you can still have your thoughts and your beliefs. That's what you're supposed to have. But you are to mind your own business, clean up your own backyard. If you're not hurting or harming somebody, or someone's not hurting or harming you, live and let live. Being gay, Buddhist, atheist, whatever the hell you are, has nothing to do with paving these highways out here. These city sidewalk streets that we all share. The interstates we share, freeways in California, wherever you want to call them, interstates, all right? Highways, U.S. highways, state highways, bridges, beaches, state parks, etc. We have built our society so big. We have so much infrastructure now. We have so many things that we all share together, but they require money to keep up. It wasn't this way just 150 years ago. Maybe less, give or take, depending on how far back you want to go. But look at my grandparents' generations. Just my dad alone didn't have central air and heat growing up. My dad alone didn't have a TV growing up. My dad, we ain't even got to go back that far. Look at the necessity. Look at all the things that you have today. Look at everything you have. Wants and needs. So many people have gotten those misconstrued. What is a want and what is a need? A lot of the people complaining out there, their foundation is based on their wants, not their needs. But at the end of the day, like my grandpa used to say, it don't matter. They'll die too. And that may be harsh, but that was a Native American view. The people who matter are the ones who are fighting right now and fighting for our future. If you're still fighting in the past, you're stuck in the past. And that's forever where you're going to be. And guess what you're going to be remembered as? A keyboard warrior, and you won't even be remembered. Every one of these comment boxes have a short shelf life. Every single day, you're in some comment box somewhere. It's going to have a short shelf life if you're not fighting for the future. If you're stuck in the past, then wallow in it, but wallow in it somewhere else. I would rather have 1,000 good followers who are going out, taking everything you're supposed to have, and teaching, than I would 100,000 who are lost, blind, and refuse to look at the future, refuse to have a foundation, and want to stay stuck in the past, wallowing in the past. The whole reason President Donald John Trump is the face of what he is, says what he says, can say what he says, the verbiage, the context, and everything is to rid the past. create a solid foundation again. It is exactly what the Declaration of Independence says. But when a long train of usurpations, then it says, becomes destructive of these ends, I'm taking out pieces. It is their right, it is their duty to overthrow such government. That is exactly what we are doing. So you got the people, well, nothing changes until we see justice, and blah, 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 blah. All of that, when you could have had time to teach someone the foundation, teach someone the origin, teach someone the history. If you can't remember it, say, hey, I know a guy who does. That is what's wrong with America. That attitude. We have an attitude problem in this nation. You want to be spoon-fed, spoon-fed, spoon-fed. Same thing I've heard my whole life. Oh, that's Congress's job. They get paid to do that. It'll just work itself out. No, it doesn't. Did it? Did it do that? Did it work itself out? No, it didn't. That's why we had to have such a strict operation put into place. But it had to be drawn out for a reason. We had to do it in a 12-year period, not an 8-year. It's so genius when you shut up and you divorce your emotions and divorce your feelings and look at what's taking place. Lawfully, there are tactics and strategies that allow the military and the government to pull President Trump back and make it look like he went away, but he was still there. It's all irregular warfare and unconventional warfare. It is not a conspiracy theory, and you shouldn't want it to be. You should want it to be lawful, and it is lawful. It's in our laws and our orders. It's in our publications of the United States military. So when you say anything against that, you cannot and you do not support, trust, respect, or have an appreciation for the military. You think you do, but it's more of an infatuated kind of contest. It's not a love. It's not a support. If you think that what I talk about is far-fetched or is a conspiracy theory, you do not respect or appreciate the United States military. There's no way you can. You think you do, but you don't. Because the military is a whole lot more than raising your right hand, repeating an oath, and going in and doing your job on a daily basis if you were in the military. It's a lot more than that. There are layers and layers and layers and variations of tactics and strategies. And they all are dependent on the current situation. What is needed? And ironically, again, a lot of what President Trump is working with has already been used before. Just a month ago, he validated me more than he's ever validated ever before, outside of putting a dash on his ball cap after I already had this out in publication. He was in a meeting with the Turkish president, and he said, when I was in exile, he remained my friend. He repeated the word exile 3 times. That is not a term that anybody's heard in the last 80 years, exile. Because the last time the term exile was used with the United States of America was in the 1940s. Exile. That's not a term you just throw around. Government in exile. Go over the 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide and look at the term in there. Government in exile with a definition. Every single thing that President Trump has said out of his mouth comes straight out of the Law of War Manual. They are not government terms. Somebody has to know. And all of these moving lips out there, there are so many moving lips who have not one single clue what's going on. And all they're doing is misleading people when there is an absolute freaking blueprint in place. There's an absolute blueprint. You don't need anything else. You don't need anything else. So the biggest question is, do you love wallowing in shit? Do you love just wallowing in the past? Because it looks like some of you do. You just love wallowing in drama, propaganda, in the past. And if you don't have that, you think your life is over. Because that's what it looks like to real patriots. Real patriots can see it. Real patriots can feel it. Real patriots can sense it. We know it. So from 1941 to 1941 to 2016, there's a timeline I've taught. And I'm going to run over it again just for the sake of it. There's a timeline from 1941 to 2016 where the swamp really got deep. Now, President Trump has been alluding to this, more validation, over and over and over, where he said we were a richest nation from 1870s to 1913. Complete validation of everything that I write about and that are in these blueprints. Complete validation. 1871, the Organic Act. It was torn up. 1874, they wrote another one. 1878, doesn't matter. Same thing. Need to go read the court cases, Stoutenberg versus Hennick, 1889. All right. Work your way forward. 1913, Federal Reserve, income tax. That was a very, however you want to look at it in history, we'd already been through the gold rush. We'd already been through the Texas Revolution. All right, you had Custer's last stand out in Montana. All right, you had all these things with the Native Americans, right? You had all these different things, right? It was Civil War, you name it. So when you think of the destruction that they were showing the American people, right? And then all of a sudden, we need a Federal Reserve. And then we need to tax people, right? Look at the people back then. There's no way to know if it was your great-grandfather or great-grandmother or whomever. There's no way to know that. There's no way to know exactly unless you have a lineage like I do. My lineage goes back, Native American. My lineage goes back to, I'm a son of the Confederacy. I'm a son of the Revolution. My lineage goes back. But there still could have been some family members in there that were awry, didn't know what was going on, had their head so far up their rear end they can give themselves a tonsillectomy. Sure, there's going to be somebody in everybody's family, because we all have those strays out there, the black sheep, right? So everybody has one. During that time period, though, is when Americans were the laziest and forgot their basic civic duties, civic roles, civic authorities. Because all this was formed. That's when the real swamp was formed. That's when the democracy was formed. Their democracy. Not the United States of America, not the origin, not the history, not the republic, not the patriots, the real patriots. That's when the swamp, democracy was established. Then you roll your way forward. All right, what do we have during the time period? You had 1929, just 16 years later, from income. You had the what? Stock market crash. Then you had the Great Depression. Then you had Roosevelt with all these deals, these new deals as they call it, the New Deal. And every single one of our grandparents, if you're my age, my grandparents could have been your parents, depending on your age bracket, but every single one bought into these deals. Money here, money here, money here, money here, money here. That was back during the time period, though, when a word and a handshake were all you needed. You didn't need a contract. So that's where a lot of people are struggling. That's where a lot of people 50 years old and older are struggling. The baby boomers. That's where a lot of the baby boomers are struggling to understand this operation. Because, most Americans in that age bracket, you're good Americans. You trust people. You trust their word. You give them a chance to prove themselves before you judge whatever it is, if they did something wrong or spited you or doubted, whatever it was, right? You don't doubt them until they give you a reason to doubt them. You don't not trust them until you give a reason. They give you a reason not to trust them, right? That's a good quality to have. That's how I was raised. But it's not the world we live in right now. We have contracts now that people will absolutely try to void, knowing they signed it, knowing they had it written and signed it, they try to void it or get out of it, etc. Divorce rates. Look at divorce rates out there. Why do you spend your time chasing a woman, right, filling her full of all these promises, hopes, and dreams and all this stuff, if you're just going to turn around and just cheat like that? I mean, it makes no sense, right? Why even get married? Why even go do that to yourself? Right? Why not just keep doing whatever you're doing? Right? So words, contracts, right? Handshakes. The baby boomer generations are the ones struggling right now. That's when they got everybody. It's always the ones who look like you, talk like you, act like you have to keep focus on. I tell people all the time, when I flung onto the scene, don't trust me just because I sound good. Don't trust me just because I maybe dress accordingly to you and think, oh, I think da-da-da-da-da. No, I've told people always, I would expect that. We do that to each other in every relationship. We hold each other to a kind of like this. You hold people off and you make them prove themselves daily, weekly, monthly. But where we've gotten is where now people will absolutely just daily, weekly, monthly, you about 5 years in and they're still doubting you after you've been consistent that whole time. That is how you prove is consistency. And then you have to have a what? A foundation in what are we operating with? What are we functioning with? Well, we have a government, so you need to know what? You need to know the basic core principles, functions, and operations of that establishment, that system. Military is the same way. In the military, we have laws and orders, and then we have a rank structure, a chain of command, as we say it. All right, and every single rank has a duty and a responsibility and an authority and a power. Everybody. And everybody has to pull their weight in those. And you don't make, especially in the military, it don't happen in the military. You don't have some little private first class telling the captain how he's going to do his job. Because the captain's going to really quickly snap. And then also, the captain's going to get the first sergeant to snap. And then they're going to deal with that little private first class that thinks he's whatever. Or whatever rank. Any rank that skips a rank or jumps or does anything, that's what's going to happen. So why don't we do that in government? We've had so many people, like President Trump has said. He said, why didn't they ever fire people when they lost their election? They didn't get back into a position. What did the deep state and the swamp do? They put someone who was maybe in, let's say, finance over in military. No military experience whatsoever. Puts them from here to here. Or they were over here, let's say, in military, and they have zero finance. They go, oh, well, let's pull you out of here and put you over here. You're a good person. No, they were good to their system, their democracy, their money pool, their money laundering, their insider trade, their insider stock. See, in so long, we've gone without treason being punished, money laundering being punished, insider information being punished, and all other things being punished every level, that baby boomers think that someone like me is just flapping my gums. It's not the case. And I'm going to be proven right. And it ain't about being right. But I've been proven daily, weekly, and monthly. These books cannot be debunked. Because these books are the blueprint that President Donald John Trump is the face of. That the military has invoked. Put all these things into action. It's up to you to learn that first. Stop worrying about justice. It's coming. Stop worrying, though, about all these other things. Stop worrying about it. Stop worrying about Charlie Kirk and what it was. Focus on what you can know first. And you can know by following and listening to the right people who have been consistent. I've been consistent. And that's how we know when people have been watching me or listening to me or reading what's in these books, if you have them or not, or the documents. That's how we know. Is because when you make a comment in the comment boxes out there, and you're saying something like, oh, this is hogwash, or this is... No, it's not hogwash, especially if you claim to be a President Trump supporter. It's not hogwash, because everything I talk about is what he put into place, what he invoked, what his name, face, brand, image, and signature is on. But what it actually is the military. It's the military laws, the military orders. It's the generals, the admirals, the world leaders, the leaders who capitulated and is a part of this. So anyone who says that, all you're doing is hurting yourself. You're not hurting us. You're not hurting the real patriots. You're not. And all you're doing is replicating the foundation. I went back last night. I already had the numbers, but I went back again. The numbers are in these books right here. But I went back again just to get the numbers again in my head and do the math on this podcast. But there were 231,000 Army, all right, in the Revolutionary War. 145,000 militiamen. There were only 2,131 Navy. And there were, I can't remember, again, maybe like 2,000 Marine Corps. All right. Didn't have an Air Force then. All right. Coast Guard wasn't involved as much. All right. So when you do the math on that, divide that number by 2.3 million, 2,300,000. All right. Divide 2,300,000 into that number. That is the percentage of people that fought in the Revolutionary War. 1.6, some number. You can round it off to 1.7. What does the number 17 represent? I don't know who and where they got 3% from. You take the number of militiamen and military men. 1.7% fought in the Revolutionary War. So what does that mean the other 98.3% were doing? Yeah. Hiding in their house, crouched down in their bunkers, whatever it was. Yeah. So see, today looks the same way. Bigger population, same thing with people who actually know what's going on, who's been put in this position, put in this place, and doing what not only God called me to do, because this is a godly operation first, and then two, what I've been tasked to do. Pretty simple. So the baby boomers are the ones struggling because you've seen so much go on and nothing happened. I get it. I understand that. But I'm telling you that you don't understand the man that you claim that you support. You don't understand the military you claim to love and support. The military has changed. President Trump said, I've rebuilt the military. He's alluding to what it was and what it's going to be. There's a clear separation in the past and the future. So how can you believe in a man, love a man, trust a man, claim to support a man if you don't really know his plan? And you can know his plan. It's executive orders heavily. All right, he signed over 200 this year alone, which is a record outside of Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt. All right. You can't get any more clear than that. Proclamations, executive actions as a whole, memorandums, all right, they're all there. Then you have things like your national emergencies and your proclamations and your treaties. They all tell the tale what's going on right now. So I'm going to get back on the 1941 and the 2016 timeline. 1941 was the first War Powers Act. The second War Powers Act in 42, but it wasn't an amendment to it. It was separate. It just was talking about land and naval use. All right, but 1941 Powers Act. Roosevelt told Congress, if you don't act, I will. All right, so 1941 Powers Act. All right, then you had your Bretton Woods system and all these other things. You had your establishment of the National Security Act in 47. You had NATO established in 49. Next thing you know, we're in Korea in 1950. All right, and then you had something in 1951 that I always pause on, but I'll do it right now just for the sake of 1951. Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. Why? Korea War ended 53. We were in Vietnam in 55. That's when it started. A lot of people don't know that. Vietnam actually started 55. All right. 1961, you had Eisenhower's famous speech, the military-industrial complex. He didn't like where the military was going and the medical field because of money. We started having soldiers come in for what? Paychecks, higher paychecks, medical, dental, housing. You don't pay a bill in the military. You live on, if you get to live in a house, everything's taken care of. It's a pretty good life. Pretty doggone good life. So, college benefits, all these things. Your children, dependents, wife, spouse, husband, whatever. Everybody benefits from it. Everybody gets to go to the VA. Everybody gets to go to the PX, commissary, etc. Pretty good life. But guess what happens? That pretty good life, it's like welfare. Oh, are we striking a chord today? Yeah, welfare was created for good reasons, for people with a conscience, with a foundation, morals, ethics, and principles. But what happened with that? We know who got on welfare mainly. Ooh, that sounds like a racist comment, don't it? Guess who got on welfare mainly? It was white trash people more than it is the others that people think. Imagine that. See, tricked you there. White trash honkies. I'll call my own people out. White trash honkies. The ones that look like Morgan Wallen. It is what it is. Mullet, shaved on the side. You can see them at any Dollar General at any given day in the South. That's all Morgan Wallen is a Dollar General special. All right. Be careful for your catalytic converters. That's what you got to watch out for with those type people. They're going to take that. They'll go to old churches and take copper wires out of it. That's the white trash honky. If you don't know what a white trash honky is, that's exactly what it is. All right, the mullets and the yeet and all that kind of stuff, that's what a white trash honky is. All right, they have no ambition in life. They don't desire to do anything else in their life. They just want to do that. But they turn and do other things with it. It's one thing to be a country life and live out in the middle of nowhere and be country and support yourself. It's another thing when you're always scrounging around an old trailer trying to see if it's got copper wire in it or the air conditioning in it. Those people got on welfare. And they've milked the system. And they want you to pay for it. And they whine and complain when it's taken away. Nothing. They want you to work. They want you to go to your 8 to 5, 9 to 5, and work overtime, etc., work 2 and 3 jobs. They want you to do it. So, see, America's waking up. The working class people are finally waking up somewhat. Finally going, oh, wait, that is true. Oh, my gosh, yes, I'm working 2 and 3 jobs. But then again, the flip side of that also, Southerners, I pick on my own people. Where you at, Southerners? You got a 2 and 3 bedroom house. You got 1 kid. You don't need a 2 and 3 bedroom house. All right. You got a Z71 4x4 2500 HD sitting in the driveway. You rarely pull anything with it. You just ride into look and style. All right. And you got a Toyota, 4Runner or something of that nature for your wife. All right. You can't afford that either. You got a boat. You got an ATV. You got a hunting lease. You're always at the beach. During recession and during COVID, you were complaining about certain things. You were still at the beach. You were still at the lake. You were still buying your alcohol. You were still buying your cigarettes. You were still doing those things. Living a life that you're trying to keep up with the Joneses for no reason at all. Can't even afford what you have. You're stretched to the max. You're making all these high monthly payments on things you want, not what you need. People who know me know I still live in the same thing. I still drive. My vehicles are 18 years old. One of them's 10 and 18 years old. I still eat Vienna sausages. I don't care what RFK says. I eat Vienna sausages. I eat the jalapeno ones, though, by the way. All right. They're pretty good. I still eat chicken salad sandwiches. wheat bread, things like that. Spam sandwich, spam with tomato, mayonnaise on it. Boom. Woo. Country boy delicacy right there, baby. Cowboy delicacy. All day long. Eat it all day long. I eat leftovers. I'll eat on the same crock pot for 3 and 4 and 5 days. That's how you live and survive. It's real simple. It's not hard. You don't get your wants bigger than your needs. You keep your needs always up front. So see, we have people who bought into all these things in the 50s and the 60s, and we have all these things that were created for good reasons, but then people went in and what? Abused it. Abused it. And then we had people who didn't hold those people accountable. Then we had all these mouths out there, these libtards, all right, who come in there and going, oh, they didn't mean to murder 3 people. They're still a good person. Oh, let's just put them in jail and feed them the rest of their life. Because the person who they murdered didn't, all of a sudden their rights were taken away from them because of that malicious act. But these people have more rights than the people whose rights were taken away. But we don't take away the rights of the one who took away their rights in a malicious way. That's why we got where we are. Attitude, mentality, zero foundation. Zero foundation. President Eisenhower was a 5-star general. You probably ought to go look up what a 5-star general is. It's rare. We've only had 8 post the Civil War. Also, 5-star admiral. 63. JFK went around the Federal Reserve, went straight to the Treasury. $4.6 billion, January 1963. What happened 11 months later? The deep state struck, didn't they? Yeah. So, Lyndon Johnson. You know what Lyndon Johnson called the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Come on, black people, where you at? Where you at? I've got some African Americans, some black people who follow me, love me. They know what I'm about to say. Black people were duped. Black people used to be the ones who were pissed off the most. They used your name, they used your face, they used your ethnicity, they used everything against you. You know what Lyndon Johnson called the Civil Rights Act? He called it the NIGGER bill, the N bill. Does that sound like someone who's for you? Does that sound like somebody who has your best interest? The very word that a guy like me, if I ever said that in the real context, even joking context, especially with the hard R, if I said that to majority of black folks, I'd be canceled, racist, you name it. But the very act that's supposed to represent civil rights and black people and voting and this, the very quote-unquote president who had one murdered, what did he call it? The N bill. That's not somebody who's for you. That's somebody who's trying to control you even more with your emotions and your feelings. That's called manipulation and gaslighting. That is manipulation and gaslighting 101 right there. They took this verbiage and context in this bill and made all these people think we're giving you rights. No, 83% of black people have voted Democrat since that day. That is control, capture, and control. Gaslighting, manipulation. 1968, gold standard. We left the gold standard, all right. The Unified Budget Act. Very key. 1971, the Nixon shock. They made the dollar as valuable as they wanted it and invaluable. We call that inflation. All right. They, who are they? The deep state, the swamp, Republicans and Democrats. They, in their system, their quote-unquote democracy that they established for them to capture and control you. They made the dollar as valuable as they wanted it to be and invaluable. That is called inflation and deflation. Capture, control. They have controlled you. All because Americans don't know your simple core functions and operations of what you're supposed to know. You've trusted TV, baby boomers especially. You're good people. You're trustworthy. Handshake, word of mouth, eye to eye. But you followed the TV. That's where they psyoped everybody. The TV, TV, TV. And made you think all these news outlets were for you. They were all in this. That's why President Trump talks about the people up here. Not your anchors. And some of them are too, because they're obviously on these networks. But the people up here that you don't see that own these networks. That's why he said media was used as a weapon against you. Social media in the 90s. Everybody remembers AOL, and you had to do the little you've got mail. Remember all that bull crap? Remember the dial-up? Remember all that? Everybody started getting hooked to it. Oh, what is this, you know? Now, I say it all the time, I think the better technology gets, the dumber people get. You walk around with a cell phone in your hand 8 hours a day. Someone asked the other day, what does roll tide mean? Google it! You show how lazy you are. You got a phone, a walking computer in your hand with access to every freaking thing. Google it. Now, if it were me, again, I'd wipe out all internet. You wouldn't have it. You'd be in a library and a town hall. Straight up. You would have some education in your life. Real education. Not all this man-made college. And I can speak. I have a bachelor's degree from right back here, University of Alabama, and I have a master's degree from right here, Colorado State. I can speak. I have the papers. I can speak. I've been to the institutions. I know what they're all about. Learn the professor. That's all you got to do. All you young college students out there, all you got to do is learn the professor. Learn what they like, what they love, learn their ideology, and they're right here. And you can pass. Even if it's completely against your beliefs, learn theirs. Ace 4.0. Same thing with country music. You know how I know how it works? Because I've already beat the system. No, I don't have 60 number one hits like George Strait. Nope. I don't need them. All I needed was 2 billboards. Figured it out that quick. Money, 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 honey. But I didn't spend what Zach Top and Morgan Wallen and all these people. I didn't spend that kind of money. We didn't have to. That's how I beat the system. Double beat it independently and beat it monetarily. It costs on average $800,000 for one song. One song. To get into the Billboard Top 60. Didn't spend nowhere remotely close to that. Beat this system real bad. So see, people do know. It's the people who don't want to know. Because once you question one lie, you got to question it all. And you don't want to really hear the truth. You don't want to hear that Morgan Wallen's a piece of shit. You don't want to hear that Lainey Wilson's trash. You don't want to hear all this. You don't want to hear that people sold themselves. You don't want to hear that the record labels are all about the money. You don't want to hear. You don't want to hear it. Because you think music is good for your soul and it's universal. It's the one thing we can all come. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. You just keep supporting trash systems because you don't want to know the truth, you don't want to stand on truth, and you don't want to change the trash systems. I can tell it day by day. I can tell it day by day. I'll put up a new song that I solo wrote all by myself, 8 shares, 9 shares. Videos like this, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 shares. I can tell when I do a music video just alone how it works. 8 shares, 9 shares. It's the same as I was before the world knew me. I can tell that you don't want to know the truth. I can tell that you're not really wanting that. You want it your way. You want it in your terms and on your timeline. TV and social media has ruined everything. And again, if it were me, you wouldn't have it. I would need a military like nobody's business to protect me because I'd have so many people mad at me. I'd have to move to Antarctica or somewhere. You put faith in names, you put faith in drama, you put faith in propaganda. You don't put faith in a foundation. You don't put faith in origin. You don't put faith in history. You don't put faith in the things that matter. And that's why certain people look the way they look. And until you have a strong foundation in your origin, your history, the right kind of government, not the wrong kind, but faith in military, and you're going to continue to look like that. So all of you out there, if there's still any on my pages that didn't get tossed in the last couple of days, with the Erica Kirk and the Charlie Kirk thing, I want you to write me a 1-page essay. It better have laws. It better have orders. It better have every single thing to do with our military and our government. I want a 1-page essay to my public email. What would you do? Since you think you know more than President Donald John Trump, since you think you know more than the military, since you think you know more than everybody in operations, since you think you know more, I want a 1-page essay with quotes from laws and orders, what you would do different. What would you do different? You holier than thou people out there think you know more than the military, think you know more, ain't ever been in the military, ain't ever been in government, ain't ever been in any position, don't know the 3 branches of government, don't know your basic core simple functions. What would you do different? I want a 1-page essay. And it better be an 8 font, not even a regular 11 or 12. It better be some real hardcore writing. What would you do different, you holier than thous? What would you do different? And why are you so pissed of somebody who does know, who has the books, who's been to the validation points, been validated over and over again? What would you do different? And why are you so mad to find out that maybe someone that had a big name before all of this, see, you're not paying attention is what it is. Most of these people that you're putting your faith and trust into already had a name before the operation. And you're going to find out that some of these people that you put faith into, that walk like you, talk like you, act like you, spoke like you, and all the other things, ain't you. And I've been saying it over and over and over again. Naturally, if it's someone big in politics, see, something like in the Congress, right? Someone who's actually with your paycheck, oh, you'd be okay with knowing that someone was bad, right? Oh, you thought they were good and they were bad. Oh, get them. Yeah, remove. But Charlie Kirk, what if he was? What if he was a bad dude? See, you're not thinking about what if he was. What if he was talking like you, walking like you, acting like you, speaking like you, but ain't you? What if he was all these things on the front you thought he was, but actually wasn't back here? You can't hear from someone who knows a little bit about irregular warfare and unconventional warfare and has the books on it to say, hey, just hold off. Don't jump too quick. Don't speak too quick. Don't be all keyboard warrior over here, because you just might find out about somebody that You might have thought with your little gut instinct from your external spot, wherever you are on the map, you might have thought this, but it ain't that. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I've just been showing you the whole time to be careful. Here's the facts of what you can know. And when you take what you can know, it don't add up. It don't add up. When you brag about having donations, we're talking about an $85 million organization. When you brag about that, and all of a sudden, you got donation links up, something ain't jiving. That's what your brain should think. You go, wait, hold on. All right, so 85 million brags about donations from all these different people, big organizations and big donors. But all of a sudden, if the economy sucks, like some quote-unquote patriots think, if the economy sucks, if the people are struggling out there, then why would they be preying on that demographic? Because that's the only demographic that supports him. It ain't the liberals. It's not the Democrats. So the demographic that would support this person, they're asking for donations from the public, not the donors that had been supporting and had been running this organization. See, that's what you get when you don't listen to people who actually know. That's what you get when you rely on your feelings and your emotions. Naturally, your feelings and emotions are going to take up for someone that you think is like you, looks like you, talks like you, acts like you, walks like you. But you don't know Charlie Kirk. You know nothing about it except for what? Except for what this little thing told you that you hold in your hand 8 hours a day. Except for what told you. People who were a part of everything before the operation told you. You're still hanging on to the blue checks that had the blue checks before 2017. You're still hanging on to all the people who had a name before 2017. Which means you're still doing what? You're still wallowing in the past. You're wallowing in names. You're wallowing in drama and propaganda. You're not trusting President Donald John Trump. You're not trusting the military. You're not trusting the plan because you hadn't read the plan. You ain't studied the plan. You hadn't even sought to comprehend the plan. It's that simple. Like President Trump, the cure can't be bigger than the problem. How do you drain the swamp? How would you drain the swamp? And you think the swamp just presents itself? That's why I put the photo up this week of Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny, because a lot of people think that the swamp and the bad guys just pop up like Bugs Bunny chewing on a carrot, and Elmer Fudd's going, what are you hunting? A wabbit. I'm looking for a wabbit. And then, well, what's he look like? Well, he's gray and white, and he always eats a carrot. And he's turning and looking at him the whole time. And then he goes, well, I think if you look a little harder in that hole right there, you might find him. Then he'll jump in the hole and come around here, and here I am, and here he is, same rabbit. Then he comes back out and gets behind him again and goes, well, did you find him? Turns back around, looks at him, Oh, you dirty wabbit! A lot of patriots that aren't really patriots, but that's what they think they are. That's the example of what they think irregular and unconventional warfare is. You think these bad guys are just going to come out and go, okay, I did it, I'm sorry, it was me. It was me, I did it. You want everything right now. It's like that J.G. Wentworth commercial. It's my money and I want it now. So you're calling a lender because you don't have money. Hey, lender, I need some money. It's my money and I want it now. That's what some people are acting like, calling themselves patriots. You're not a real patriot. You're not. There's not many real patriots out there. I can go ahead and tell you right now. It's not. Because the only thing you need to know is what President Donald John Trump is the face of. And that's all been put out there in executive orders, national emergencies, treaties, proclamations. It's all been put out there. It's all you need to know. Then you have things that are distraction pieces. There's psyops. There are all kinds of things. I can assure you right now, this bullet right here, this is a 30-06. I keep them close because I hunt with a 30-06. This bullet right here, if that hits your neck, you ain't going to have a neck. Go ahead, all you holier-than-thou experts, knows more than military, knows more than all the special operations. Go get on Google. Get on Google and type in 30-06 human neck. And it's going to put up all these graphic censored content. You can't see it initially. You're going to click on the pictures. And they'll say, are you sure you want it? Whatever it says. Yes. Go on. Go on with it. I just put up today on my Facebook a picture of President Trump that some libtard put up. It's a picture of President Trump. It's got the F-bomb on it. You know. It's censored as sensitive content on social media, on X. To this day, the original footage of some of your, Charlie Kirk is the end-all do-all. All of you, that video has not been censored to this day. Watching a football game a couple weeks ago, month ago, whenever it was, they did a story on a kid. They blurred out the surgical procedure. It was already blurred out on TV. That, a video screen, straight up, recorded it. On my phone, put it on X, it is marked as sensitive content. And it's already blurred out on the TV screen. I will not apologize for knowing what I know. I will not hold it from you from knowing what I know. That is what happened with all these years of the swamp. You were withheld information. You were withheld the truth. You were withheld everything you were supposed to know, needed to know, in order for you to digest it. So if you have a problem learning that someone that you might think that you know nothing about on the backside of things, you didn't know he lived in a $6.5 million house, does that sound like somebody that should be preaching to you? Does that sound like somebody? So see, I don't care if you perceive me as not liking the guy or not liking the person or like, I don't care what you perceive it as. You cannot have a solid foundation in this nation until you know the core principles, values, functions, and operations of our nation first. Someone being gay and Buddhist can still be a MAGA person. So even those things to a Christian, nasty. Well, they can still be MAGA. There are so many gay people who love President Trump. So see, it's the holier-than-thou mentality that had to have the psyop done on you, because President Trump's done alluded to that. He's already alluded to that. In the speech last year, talking about, 90% of Christians and gun owners don't vote. I bet your asses will vote now, though, won't you? Look at all these stadiums, these college kids that are filling up out there listening to Erica. I don't know what else could happen. I don't know what else could wake you up. If it takes Charlie Kirk to wake up people, dear God, help us all. If memorial graves in this land don't wake your ass up, go to a national memorial cemetery somewhere. Don't wait till Memorial Day. Don't wait till Veterans Day. Take your happy ass to a national memorial cemetery and look at all of those rolling hills of graves. You are a freaking absolute disgrace if you think that Charlie Kirk is the thing that has to wake this nation up. You're a damn disgrace. If you think that that person who was never in the military is supposed to wake you up, you're a disgrace to this nation. I'm not going to apologize because I know people who have fallen for this nation, and I have friends and family who have also fallen for this nation, and I also have friends and family who have friends and family who have fallen for this nation. We are that lazy, pathetic, and spoiled. It's a psyop. It's a counter-psyop more than it is a psyop. None of that was real that day. None of it whatsoever. A white t-shirt that don't have blood stains on it, but in 3 seconds time, run into an SUV, the full left arm looks like it dipped itself in an Easter egg dye, crimson color, and is dry. And y'all wonder why other veterans don't stand up and speak out? It's because of dealing with stupidity like this. This is absolute stupidity and ignorance that people cannot see something so freaking simple. They put it right in front of you, and you can't even comprehend it because you're all stuck in your feelings and your emotions. I'm not apologizing. Never will I apologize for any single memorial grave in this land who can't speak anymore. There's old George Jones song, 50,000 names. George Jones, 50,000 names. One of those 50,000 names happens to be a relative of mine. I got to visit that wall and find my relative's name and take the paper and the crayon and find his name. He's one name. One name of the Vietnam era. One name. Every one of those names and every one of those lives served a purpose. Every one of them. And they came long before Charlie Kirk. And if that's how you're going to be, then get the hell off my page. Leave. I don't want you. I don't need you. We don't want you. We don't need you. Leave. Stay wallowing in drama and propaganda that's meant to get the people who haven't heard me yet. But if you've heard me and you haven't gone and studied what you can know right here, then you're only doing this man an injustice, you're doing the military injustice, and you're doing yourself an injustice. President Trump and that 45-47 is unique and different for a reason. It's unique and different because it is that. It's an operation. He was an outsider for a reason. There's a reason why Hillary Rodham Clinton in 1994 said, oh, we need someone like Donald Trump to run this nation because it can't be changed and it can't be bought. Oh, imagine that. They never thought they would lose it. And now that they're losing it, you don't need to be losing your mind because they're retaliating. Naturally, it's still pre-planned. Everything you're watching right now has already happened. But for the people who don't know that, because you hadn't sought to know the comprehension of the 45-47, all right, because you don't know that, the retaliations that looks like the deep state are saying this and saying that, that's all it is. It's verbal retaliation. And we're going to get to that in a minute. So who was the swamp? The swamp was that 1941 to 2016. They issued all these executive orders, kept them open. Issued national emergencies, kept them open. That was Congress's problem in 1973. Congress in 73, there's that timeline, 1973. Congress tried to limit the president by using the military where he can only declare a national emergency. President Trump has 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies from 2017 to 2021 still active. Those are separate, though, from the past. He's already terminated multiple executive orders with national emergencies from the swamp. That's why he's bragging about, I've ended 8 wars in 8 months. It's wars you didn't know about. See, that you don't want to look like a liberal. Liberals going, that wasn't a war, and this, it most certainly is and was. It's because you weren't told about it by your little TV, your little brainwashing tube, and you weren't told on the social media by the names that be to care about it yet. It's the only reason you know about Russia and Ukraine is because you were told to react. So how do you think the president operates? See, that's what gets me about it. It's like you claim you're a President Trump supporter. You claim you love the man, support the man, but you don't think he's operating with laws and orders? He says it all the time. Shouldn't you want to know what those laws and orders? That's all I talk about. Are President Trump's laws and orders. I'm going to read a quote just because. I had it pulled up here. Abraham Lincoln. All right. Abraham Lincoln said, although bad laws, if they exist, should be repealed as soon as possible, still while they continue in force, for the sake of example, they should be religiously observed. What he meant by this, he suggested that even a bad law should be strictly followed while it is still in effect. The strict observant, meaning enforcement of, would force the public to confront the law's negative effects, building popular opposition that would lead to its eventual repeal. In this view, ignoring or selectively enforcing a bad law allows it to remain on the books indefinitely. So see, that's what Americans have done. You don't know the laws, you don't know the orders, So you don't know what a good law is and a bad law. Therefore, you don't know that President Trump is actually in a unique, strategic, special operation. The 45-47 is a blueprint. You can put brackets around it. I always do this all the time, like this. I always put brackets around that, just like that. Now, that's not going to end. Nothing's going to go away in 47 as far as the golden age and where we're headed with new laws, new orders, and new acts, new bills, etc., legislation. But this is a strategic operation. This is an operation. The whole thing. It's a visual. So put little brackets around it. The whole thing. So therefore you should want to know those laws, those orders that outline that strategic special operation. That's what makes him unique. That's what makes him different. That's why he put the dash on that ball cap April the 2nd, 2023. Right in the middle of the puppet government, the government in exile, as a vision. That if you knew what you were watching, if you knew what you were seeing, if you loved it and supported it, then it was a validation to you. But it can't be a validation to you if you don't know it. Read it, study it, understand it, comprehend it. See how that works? So that's why so many people look atrocious. I don't want you to look atrocious, and I don't want to have to call you a name. But act like it, look like it, you might need to be told it. Right? The whole point of an executive officer is to enforce the laws. So let's read one of Thomas Jefferson's quotes about that. The execution of the laws is more important than the making of them. Thomas Jefferson, July 19, 1789. Imagine that. The execution, the enforcement of the laws is more important than the making of them. Why write them if you're not going to enforce them? Which outlines the deep state, their retaliation. Naturally, they're supposed to say something. If you think this is real, in the sense of real time, and you think Hillary's saying something right now in real time, it's not. But if you want to believe that, I'll let you believe that for a moment, because if they're saying something in retaliation, then it's exactly what it's supposed to be. Because you do want their democracy demolished. You do want their democracy decimated. All right? So why would you write a law if you don't plan on enforcing it? See, every single law that President Trump's working with, that's been on the law books long before he was ever president. The orders weren't. The laws were. That's why people hear law and order, you don't even know how to separate it. Law has been established. It was legislated by the Congress. The order is from the president to give an order to enforce it. Invoke it, enforce it. So I just want to know, how do you think the military functions? How do you think the military functions and operates? How do you think government functions and operates? Now, you have your days of old, but there was a line drawn in the sand. November the 8th, 2016, that line was drawn in the sand. January the 20th, 2017, that strategic special operation started. There is a lawful way to pull President Trump back, make it look like he left to the general public that don't know laws and orders, don't know strategic operations, special operations. All right, unconventional warfare, irregular warfare. There's a way to do that, but he never left. That's the only thing I talk about. He never left. That's why I cannot believe so many people did not know what was going on, especially veterans. But some veterans do. They just don't want to deal with stupidity. They don't want to deal with ignorance. So you got to forget your past. All right. You got to take your trust out of names, faces, places, and rhetoric. Rhetoric don't get you anywhere. All right. Talking about gay marriage and abortion, none of that stuff goes anywhere until we have a solid foundation of how the government operates, the military operates, and how it functions, and how bills are presented and made acts. Until you have a solid foundation in that, your civics and all this other stuff, it don't matter. Until you have a solid understanding, comprehension of how you speak to your representatives and how you vote them in, how you speak to them, and that, then it's always going to be just what it's been. The whole purpose of 45-47 is to abolish what it has been and reestablish what it's supposed to be. And we got a long way to go in this nation. We have a long way to go because on the ground levels, it's atrocious. And Republicans, conservatives, and some people calling themselves patriots, you look just as atrocious as liberals, if not worse. You're supposed to know these things. Americans have a trust problem because your foundation has been built on shifting sands. Shifty foundation. You have no foundation. You're looking for truth in all the wrong places and all the wrong faces. So I have a new book out. All right, it's called The Midnight Rider Bible. It's the first book that's taken every single core military establishment, military foundation, your Articles of Confederation, your Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 of the Constitution, broken down, put it in there. Also, everything. I put everything in there. The Treaty of Ghent, the Treaty of Paris, you name it. From 1775, every core basic foundation principle of that, though, not individual principles, not Christian principles. I'm talking about origin and history of this nation in one book. It's 578 pages of nothing but text. There are no pictures in there. All text. There are page numbers. There are table of contents where you don't have to flip through and get lost, whatnot. But 62 chapters of the most important things from our legislation, our government, origin and history, and also present day, how bills work, how they become acts, etc. All right, appropriations bill, consolidations, slip laws, you name it. Explain. I put the legislative terms and definitions all in there, the key terms you need to know, definite. It has everything in it in one book. Everything. That will provide a solid enough foundation that you'll have that as a foundation. Then you need to branch off with it. Then you need to go look up every single one of those and study those. And you're going to find that you love some of it more than the other. And then guess what you're going to do, though? You're going to find your purpose. You're going to find your purpose. You're going to find your calling as an American to apply yourself wherever you are. But I can tell you right now, there are more people who follow me outside of the United States of America who know more about our origin and history than you Americans do. That's sad. It's awesome for them, but it's sad for you. They know more about the United States of America. They are more of an American citizen and civilian than you are. And it's not a competition, and it's not supposed to be a fight or an argument or anything like that, but it should be a motivation point. So that book, 578 pages. I wrote that bad boy in 3 days. Put it all together in 3 days. I didn't write the Declaration of Independence, duh. I didn't write the Articles of Confederation. I didn't write the Federalist Papers. I put all the Federalist Papers in there. The Federalist Papers alone took up like 236 pages of it. But they're all in one location. Therefore, you don't have to do what? You don't have to go to Google and Google all these and sit there and try to read that little stuff on a little text or your little screen. All right, you don't have to get your laptop open and do every individual. It's all in one book. Every key component, key things that build the United States of America and make an American a true American are all in one book now. No excuses. So if President Trump was not working with a solid foundation of laws and orders, then the 4 years that people thought he was president and the 4 years right now would just be another 4 years. It would just be another president, more laws and orders, more executive orders that can be terminated, etc., etc. That's all it would be. And liberals wouldn't be retaliating out there, the low-level liberals, the ones on the ground, all right? Not the ones on in positions, nothing, none of that. It's all theater, but still, the ones that don't know that, they wouldn't be retaliating. Which brings me to the fact of what I was saying earlier. Liberals' retaliation has only been verbal. And I'm talking about now the ones in position. It's only been verbal. So their verbal retaliation is, guess what? It's also validation. It's also validation. And let me just show you how. James Carville, the lunatic liberal, right? Always raging, always like that, right? He's like the libtard version of Sylvester Stallone. That, but he sounds more like the Tasmanian Devil than he does like Rambo, Rocky, etc. Right? Huge difference, right? And he looks 100 times worse. He's an LSU fan, so that also pretty much tells you he's a dumbass. All right. Now, I know there's a lot of LSU fans out there. They're good people. All right. But I'm talking about the real kind of LSU fans, like the term I won't use that Southern Louisianans call themselves. There's a term out there that people think's racist, but it's not. It's a term they use. All right. But James Carville, he was talking about recently now that if the Democrats could win, they would have Senate control and House control, and if they could get a president back in and be full Democrat control. All right, he said something on those lines. I don't have the direct quote right in front of me, but you'll see it floating around all over social media. All right, so James Carville, everybody knows who he is. If you don't know him by name, you'll know him when you see him. When you Google him, you will most definitely know who this guy is. The liberals think he is like the little volleyball in the movie Castaway. Oh, they think this dude is like the it. They think he's the voice of their party, etc. One of the voices. All right. And that's just pure hatred from Alabama LSU football, by the way, in a good way. So, not all LSU fans are bad. He is, but not all are. So I want to reiterate that. All fun and games. All right. Roll Tide. All right. So, Carville said this. Now, what validates... I've already been validated to Tulsa and back. And I've been past Tulsa. I mean, we've been to Pluto, or wherever you think is the farthest place that your mind can possibly think. I've already been validated by President Trump multiple times. He just didn't say, oh, Derek Jonhson, Rattle Trap 1776, da-da-da-da. That's what people think he's supposed to do. He don't. If you knew the laws and orders, if you knew the blueprint, you would know where I've been validated over and over and over. The exile term just a month ago. Multiple times, everywhere. The dash being put on there after my documents were out. Long out. And I was already writing the book. I was already on the contract to write the book before the dash came out. Come on, people. Time stamps do not lie. Where did I sign my publicity contract to write that book? Trump International. All right. And who was having conversations around him? He was holding the phone up in a photo, holding the phone up when I was telling someone at the table what he had done lawfully with the dash. And the guy on the phone goes, that guy knows what he's talking about. You could tell the guy on the phone had already heard me before. He said it in the context of saying, that guy knows what he's talking about, meaning he's heard me before. He knows who I am. They know who I am. He didn't say, man, that guy knows what he's talking about. See, if you pause there, it sounds like, oh, that's the first time I've heard that. Man, that guy knows what he's talking about. No, he didn't say it like that. He said, that guy knows what he's talking about. Meaning, they know who I am. They've heard me before. They know what I'm doing. They know what I'm teaching you. Then President Trump puts the dash on. Think about it. February 18th, 2023. February 18th. Whole month of March. April the 2nd. That dash was put on that ball cap. After I signed the contract, and he knew what I was signing it for, I was at Trump International, the private course. He was there. He told me, today's your day. Have a good day. Enjoy your birthday. Make yourself at home. I think I sounded more like Michael Jackson there, but you get what I'm saying. I was celebrating my birthday that week. at Trump International with my friend Siggy Flicker and other friends that were there. All right? That's what we were there for, and signing my contract. It was a double. You can't make this stuff up. It's all been validated. And it's not about me, and it sounds like it is sometimes, but it's not. It's me having to break it down to say, hey, we're trying to win you over to the right side of origin, history, foundation, laws, orders, 45-47, President Donald John Trump, what he sacrificed with his name, brand, image, his family, and his future family. That's what this whole thing's about. So the James Carville thing can show you validation this way. Every bit of what the liberals are doing on the bigger, it's all verbal. Naturally, they're supposed to retaliate. Naturally, they're supposed to say, oh, he's doing this and he's doing that. And he's destroying this and he's doing that. Naturally, these actors and actresses, naturally, they're showing you who they are. They're showing you who their allegiance is to. They're showing you this. They're telling you. That's verbal validation in another kind of way, that when they're retaliating, they're saying, Donald Trump destroyed this nation. Donald Trump's doing this. Yes, that's the whole purpose of the dash, is to demolish, decimate the deep state, the swamp. That's the whole purpose. And it wasn't just Democrats. It wasn't just liberals. It's Republican and Democrat. This is not a Republican-Democrat thing. This is good versus evil. So if you consider yourself a good person out there, you probably want to be on the good side. You probably want to know what President Trump's doing, what he's done, who he is, what he represents. There's no way President Trump did any of this without military laws, military orders. Military is the first line of defense in this nation, as we were established first, and we will be the last. And you better be proud of that. You better be happy and thankful for that. Because all you people out there, the ones catching this, that you're just doing this, when the good Lord said in the good book, I have fought the good fight, finished the race, that don't mean fighting in the comment boxes. No, no, no. If you think that's your portion of a fight, you are gravely mistaken. Has nothing to do with that whatsoever. Nothing to do with it. And that's where you need to take your rear end to a national memorial cemetery again and remind yourself what a real fighter looks like. And remind yourself that every veteran in this nation can have a grave that looks just like that. Some choose to be buried beside their spouses in regular cemeteries that have a plaque with the military service, but others choose to be buried in those memorial graves, the same place I can go and will go, rolling hills. Same color stone. They all have the same shape, same color. You can't tell one rank from the other. That is what the military is about right there. The first line of defense, the last line of defense. So Cargill actually validated the dash. See, look how many people are going to look at his, even Republicans and conservatives and some patriots, that don't know about the dash, don't know that it's a strategic special operation outlined in laws and orders currently invoked to this day that outline the 45-47. Look at all the Republicans, conservatives, quote-unquote patriots, who's going to respond to that in a drama, propaganda, real-time way. And they don't even realize that James Carville, another little notch out there, there's been so many validities, validations, all right, that you can just check everywhere. But here's another one added to it. Talking about the Democrats having, if we get full control of the House and the Senate, we can do this. They have full control of the House and the Senate, quote unquote. That's the very thing I talk about. Listen. I'm going to pause for a minute. Listen. 45-47, the dash portion was the government in exile that President Trump just validated a month ago with Turkish president. 3 times he said the word exile, government in exile. That's what that is. That's an unconventional warfare tactic. The other portion of that is a puppet government, a shadow government, a puppet government. That's what people thought that, quote unquote, people thought Joe was being controlled by Obama back here behind the scenes. Most people still to this day, even conservatives, Republicans, and some patriots, do not know and have not applied what I talk about. The ones who've heard me. The puppet government was used in the 1940s. My grandfather served in the Army during the most popular puppet government in history. Up to then. Not anymore. All right. 1943, 1945, puppet government, Second Philippine Republic. President Quezon of the Philippines capitulated to Roosevelt, was moved to D.C. Japan installed a fake, faux president. A phony, fake, a faux, a president. Installed a president who met the press. That's it. Had control of civil affairs and met the press. That's it. President Laurel. Now, President Quezon knew at the time it was a sacrifice. And the Filipino people actually thought for a while that Laurel was their president. But he had no control of the military. And during the time period, what was more prevalent? The war they were in, the World War II. Quezon was the actual president. So there were two presidents, quote unquote. One had control of military. One only had control of a few little bit of civil affairs. What everybody thought they witnessed with Joe Biden from 2021 to 2025 was a government exile with President Trump. They pulled him back. All right, the military had full control. They still have full control because the laws and orders show this. The laws and orders still show we're in a partial continuity government. The laws and orders still show the Department of War, what used to be Department of Defense, aircraft are still flying around with special air mission call signs, which are presidential, to this day. Heavily flying and operating with that. Laws and orders show this. Now, most Americans don't even know one single law. State law, their state law, a state law, any state law. Most Americans don't even know one single law. I have provided all the laws that President Trump's using, and I can spit them just like that. That's why it could be overwhelming, but that's why you got to take these videos, pause them, slow them down, write it down in your own way, Google it in your own way, look it up in your own way, or all you got to do is just get these books, part 1 and part 2, which is a lot bigger. It's 596 pages, obviously, but that's all you got to do. Now, if you can't afford these, I get it. I understand that, but they're all on my pages. Free. Like welfare. Not. Ain't free. Someone has to pay for it. My time, my dime. I sit here weekly. Daily and weekly. Daily on posts. Weekly on videos. I give you maybe 10 posts a day. 10 to 15. 15 at the max. You don't need any more than that. You don't need post. All these people do, these pages, they do post. Algorithm whores. It's all an algorithm. And you're captured. And all you need is just a few little quotes, a few little posts, a few little this, a few little laws. That's all you need. And if you knew one simple law and a couple, and then you start sharpening your skills and learning what President Trump's working with, then you'll be able to hear the validations. Because old Carville validated it this week alone. President Trump, the exile, the puppet government, exile, everything that 2021 to 2025 was what Carville just validated. So see, someone who is so eccentric and far left, even with his far left rhetoric, validates the dash. And it don't matter, does he really know what's going on or not? It doesn't matter. That has nothing. Don't even worry about that. if you'll read the laws and orders and study to seek to comprehend what unconventional warfare and irregular warfare are, that President Trump's using that, the military is using that, the government is in a continuity government, a partial continuity government, which means we're on the latter part. We are on the ladder. But if you'd seek to know that, then you could take all these little validation points and you wouldn't need to spend your time so much on this phone. You could do other things you love. You could free up your life so much and you'd have so much more quality of life, so much clarity and quality in your mind and your attitude. And your attitude in this also reflects off on other people. It reflects in your personal lives, your spouses, your relationships, etc. Everybody's so mad and uptight over all the liberals over here. They don't know what's going on. Republicans, conservatives don't have a clue what's going on, most of them. A lot of patriots think they do and don't. So there's only a tiny little portion who really does, because why? They read, they study, and they comprehend the simple blueprint that President Trump's working with, that the military's doing, and would only be able to do it this way. If it wasn't done this way, then there would be loopholes and it would be no integrity in the operation. Everything that has been done to keep the integrity of this nation, the integrity of our foundation, the integrity of our origin, the integrity of our history. And a lot of people don't know what the word integrity means. That's another problem we have in this nation. People don't have discipline. People don't have structure. People don't have morals. People don't have ethics. People don't have respect. People don't have integrity. Loyalty. Trust. All those words have been so diluted. They have been misconstrued, manipulated, and misused, overused, and abused. So I understand the people who if you've never heard me, never seen me, never understand that. Well, guess what? You have an opportunity to read, study, and comprehend what's been currently invoked. It's for everyone. Every ethnicity, every nationality, every kind of preference, whatever the heck you are, whatever you believe, it's for everybody. Once we get that reestablished and the Declaration of Independence reset, then we can talk about things in the town halls and other things that may be just different than you. Whatever that may be, you're not going to be squandered. That's what a republic does. That's not what a democracy does. Democracy squanders that. All right? That's what a democracy does. Republic hears everybody out, and even though we may not still agree, we won't mistreat you, we won't harm you, we won't hurt you, we won't ostracize you, we won't alienate you, we won't do any of those things. So James Carville said this quote about Democrat House and Senate control, about packing the courts, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, it was presented to you that quote-unquote Joe Biden, quote-unquote Kamala, and quote-unquote their Congress was Democrat control, and so Democrat House and Democrat Senate control from 2021 to 2023. Hear me again. James Carville is posting right now about Democrats getting House and Senate control and doing all these things that Republicans would typically respond to, react to, not respond. Let's use the word react. Let's use the right context. React to. What part of 2021 to 2023 did people not see? It was a Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate. That was shown to the people. Now, I know it wasn't real. I know it's all pre-planned. I know it's all in operation. But for the people who don't, that's what they displayed to you. So why didn't they pack the court then? Why didn't they abolish one single tariff? They call President Trump a dictator, a fascist, a communist, a Nazi, a threat to the Constitution, a threat to Americans, a threat to this nation. But quote-unquote Joe, and the Democrat House and the Democrat Senate, if Joe Biden was president, if Kamala was the first black anything vice president and woman, all right, if all that was true, then they would have the same authority and the power as every other president. That's why they call it the executive branch. All right? Legislative branch writes the laws, passes the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws. And they can terminate certain executive orders. All right? They can abolish that together. Then you have your judicial branch who interprets the laws. So why didn't, quote unquote, Joe and the Ho, why didn't they terminate one single tariff? Do you know when the tariffs were put into place? 2018. Did you not hear in the debate with President Trump, the quote unquote debate, which was all pre-planned, all pre-recorded, all part of the operation? Did you not hear, though, in that debate where he said, did you notice he didn't take out my tariffs? Because he can't. Now, see what typical Republicans do, what typical conservatives, typical Republicans, and typical quote-unquote patriots that aren't really patriots, they think they are, but they're not, all right? What they do is they continue that next line where President Trump says they bring in too much money. No, you're supposed to put a divider there. He said because he can't. Did you notice he didn't take out my tariffs because he can't? Bringing in too much money is not why they can't. You can terminate a tariff if you're a president due to the Presidential Records Act of 62 and 74. They made the president have the authority and duty of the tariffs. So money and too much money wouldn't be the reason why he couldn't. That wouldn't be the reason. President Trump said all that. See, they put on these run-on sentences for the people who get it, who know what he's saying. For the ones who don't, you're still part of the distraction piece because you're still hung up in the what? The past, the swamp. You're still hung up in that portion that's going to hear the disclosure down here. If you want the disclosure right now, you can know that. You can know that. They haven't. I'm still live. I'm still doing these things. I'm still posting these videos. I've got bullets out. No one's been at my door. No one's told me to hold back. No one's told me to pull back a little bit. No one's told me that. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm actually doing what I am supposed to be doing. So how is it that President Trump told you in the debate? He told you he can't take out the tariffs. Had nothing to do with money. If Joe Biden had power and authority, like every other president, he could have terminated every single thing that President Trump put into place. Everything. Every executive order, every national emergency, they could have terminated it. They have full control to the public, the visual public, not knowing laws and orders, not knowing strategics and operations and strategies and tactics, not knowing any of those. To the average American, Joe Biden, Democrat House, Democrat Senate, did not terminate one single tariff from 2021 to 2025, but especially 2021 to 2023 when they had full control of Democrat House and Senate. Not one single tariff was removed. Not one single Obama, Clinton, or Bush appointed judge tried to block a tariff from 2021 to 2025. So why all of a sudden now, in 2025, would a judge be trying to block a tariff? They can't put this any more in front of you. You're watching a strategic special operation. The whole thing is an operation. And you only do the military, memorial graves, veterans, and current military a disjustice if you think anything differently. Eight national emergencies in 8 executive orders were continued by quote-unquote Joe. From 2017 to 2021 by President Donald John Trump. January 20, 2025. 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies were continued by Joe, the Ho, and the Hoettes from 2021 to 2025, just to hand right back to President Trump, the one they call a dictator, a fascist, a communist, a threat, authoritarian, all these other terms, a king, right back January 20, 2025. Here you go, President Trump. Here's 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies. All those that are deporting illegal migrants, taking back the Panama Canal, in which we just sent 4,000 Marine Corps to just a couple months ago. Enforcing DOGE, eliminating election interference, terminating mainstream media. In the American Rescue Family Plan Act that they made and shown that Joe had in 2021, why would he fund DOGE? In that American Rescue Family Plan Act, there's an enforcement of DOGE in there with funding. So how's President Trump a dictator, a king, a fascist, a communist, a Nazi, a threat? All those executive orders could have been abolished and terminated. And then he didn't have to terminate them with a pen. When you have an executive order with a national emergency, every national emergency automatically terminates in 1 year's time if it's not continued. You know what continuing takes? Pen, paper, president. President Trump has told you in the first 100 days this year, I have signed over 400 executive actions. There were only 150 on the Federal Register at that point. Where were the other 250? Presidential Emergency Action Documents. PEDs. They're draft classified. You know who they're draft classified with? Not the Congress. Not the military. Not the Pentagon. Not the Department of War. The Department of Justice. The Department of Justice that have basically updated all their websites, and they put up there on one of their pages the Executive Order 13773, which is whom? Transnational crimes. Department of Justice at the quote-unquote Charlie Kirk funeral with no casket, no burial place to this day, no resting place, no anything. Benny Jonhson said what? What did Benny say? Benny said, we have a godly government who took over this nation. We have here represented with us the Department of War and Department of Justice. A godly government took over this nation. Department of War, Department of Justice in the same sentence. That's validation, again, of the 45-47. Plus, you don't put the Department of War, the Department of Justice, all cabinet members, your secretaries of everything, your president and your vice president under one building at one location at the same time. No. Even with the designated survivor that most of you never heard about, no. That would be a national security breach like nobody's business. Never before in history have you seen that. Has nothing to do with, we're safe now. No, most Americans don't believe that. Most Americans don't believe we're safe. Most Americans don't believe there's been an operation going on. So no, most Americans don't believe that. That would be a major breach of national security. Huge breach. No matter who it is, who it was, doesn't matter. You don't put all those people in one building, one location at the same time. All that was a validation. If you've heard me, if you've studied me, if you've studied the laws and orders put into place that outline the 45-47. This is all theater. It's all distraction pieces. It's all theater. 8 national emergencies, 8 executive orders, all forwarded to President Trump by quote-unquote Joe. They're doing exactly what they're doing. Deporting illegal migrants again, enforcing those, terminating the mainstream media, also eliminating election interference, which is going to get to something like that in a minute, and then other things. I mean, it's multiple things. Multiple things. All right, Supreme Court docket 25A327. You got to go look this up. It's just in the month of October. All right, go look this up. Go to Google, type in Supreme Court docket search. Pull up the actual Supreme Court docket on the .gov. It'll pull up a little box and type in, put in 25, don't space anything, 25A, alpha, the letter A, alpha. All right, 25 alpha. And then, but for people who don't know, I just doing the military alphabet for you. Don't type the word alpha out. Just type the word A. All right, 25A 327. Enter. All right, it's going to pull up this Supreme Court docket, and it's number 24-1287. It's a certain court case, right, versus Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. And it's talking about the emergency, so the International Emergency Economics Act. All right. So you got to go look this up. Go read about that first, but then go also read about this case. You can go read it. And this particular person, I'll summarize it. They're saying that President Trump has added all these taxes on the American public, everyone, by invoking the IEEPA. Well, there's more validation. So the IEEPA regulates commerce, all right, regulating commerce. That's an emergency power. It freezes foreign assets as well, which is an emergency power. You know where that emergency power is derived from, ladies and gentlemen? A national emergency. Every national emergency invokes 120 statutory powers by the president. There's two ways to split this hair accordingly. One, national emergencies invoke 120 statutory powers. This person is saying that President Trump has added all these taxes on the American people. There's been 62 roughly executive orders with national emergencies invoked from 1973 to 2016. President Trump has terminated most of those that need to be terminated. Now hear me out again. From 1973, when Congress amended the War Powers Act of 1941, remember the timeline, when they put term limits on the president in 1951, which it says nowhere in our Constitution under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1, it just says 4 years in a term. Nowhere in our founders, nowhere did they write anything about term limits on the president. Some of the Constitution is basically what? It's a command that the Congress or whomever will do this, this, and this. Will establish this or will set this. Or Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 doesn't do that. It just says the president's term is 4 years. So Congress violated the Constitution in 1951. They put term limits on the president. But even if the people wanted that, let's just say that everybody was in accord and 99% of population said, I like it, it's okay, we don't mind because the founders didn't think of that. Okay, why didn't they put term limits on themselves? They didn't. Then fast forward to 73. Congress of 73 amended the War Powers Act of 41, and they made it to where a president could only issue a national emergency to use military. They were trying to limit the power of the president, constraining him, right? Well, what did the presidents do from 73 to 2016? Majority of them invoked what? National emergencies, which did what? Every single national emergency unlocked the same 120 statutory powers. So, President Trump has his own executive orders with national emergencies But even if he didn't have a single national emergency himself, guess what? He still has authority and power over because he's president. All those other executive orders that were invoked and still open to this day with national emergencies from 1973 to 2016. Choo! So how is President Trump the threat? How's President Trump the king? How's President Trump the dictator, the fascist, the communist, the Nazi? All he's doing is using the laws that's been on paper and how you enforce them via the what? The executive branch. It was a Democrat House control under him and a Republican Senate, but they call it House in another way, but Senate, for the sake of separation, they call them the two houses back in the day, but House control Democrat, Republican controlled Senate under President Trump. The Section 1550 that I talk about all the time, Title 50, Chapter 33, which is the War Powers Act of 73. Section 1550 was a Democrat House, Republican Senate, which means what? Bipartisan. Everything you're watching is bipartisan. Everything you're seeing, bipartisan. Everything military, bipartisan. So this lawsuit about the tariffs and the IEEPA, all this stuff, all adding taxes, why didn't quote-unquote Joe abolish every single one of President Trump's executive orders with national emergencies? But see, it still wouldn't have mattered if we're talking about the IEEPA, though, because there were still all these executive orders with national emergencies before 2017 that have been invoked and still active to this day, which means all those 120 statutory powers are invoked on every single national emergency. That's how you debunk all this stuff. Regulating commerce, tariffs, it's an emergency power. So why didn't, quote-unquote, Joe and the Congress terminate the tariffs from 2021 to 2025, but especially 2021 to 2023, when they didn't have a single Republican control anywhere? They didn't do it. So that shows you you're watching an operation. It's all strategic, special operation. This is validations of that. These are the things that if you don't know and understand the other yet, these are the things that should make you go, wow, that makes sense. If Joe was president and they had a House control and House and Senate controlled Democrat, why didn't they terminate anything? They'd have had the power to if they were real. If they had power, they would have had the authority and power to terminate everything. They didn't do it. So the government shutdown. If you notice, they show Mike Jonhson just about every day. And I mean, now I know it's all theater. I know it's all pre-planned. I know it's all an operation. But for the people who don't, man, this dude, remove your emotions, remove your feelings about Mike Jonhson as a person, his name, etc., what you think you know about him, what you know about him. Remove that. And go, this dude, when you watch him speak, it is repeating the same thing over and over and over again. All they'd have to do is come out and say this. All right, the Democrats have the government shut down. They want to slip all these other things in here, and we're not having it. They're the responsibility of this. If you watch these things for like an hour, long, 48 minutes, whatever, without commercials, whatever, it is like just repetitive. For the whom? The target audience who are distracted by that. The few who are watching it, right? Most people aren't even watching it in its full extent anyway. But the people in the target audience are distracted by that. 32 days in, and it's every day a speech. And the speech is just what? It's a distraction piece. Because, here's how you do that. All right, in my new book about how the government operates and functions, your appropriations bills, your continuing resolutions, slip laws, etc., right? Well, President Trump was just seen in China, South Korea, Malaysia, etc., Thailand, everywhere, right? Well, that was in late October. That trip would have had to been funded way back last year, because that's how the fiscal years work. They pass these budgets here for the next year. All right. So who would have been president to the average person last October 1st? That'd have been, quote unquote, Joe Biden to the average public. So how did, quote unquote, Joe and that Congress then know to fund President Trump's trips of next year? You see why I got quiet there? You know, I got quiet there because that's why when they say that, oh, President Trump has a new national security strategy coming out, and that most presidents wait till their second or third year in, President Trump's has been in writing before he was president to the average public who thought this would be a new presidency, even though it would be a second to them. It would still be a new slate, which means in history, yeah, it was normally the late first year or in the second year that the national security strategy came out. President Trump's has been in works. It's about to be put out in his first year to the average public of this year. How did, quote unquote, Joe, the Congress then, how did they know to fund all these trips that President Trump has been going on and doing? How did they know to fund? But here's the other thing. Here's your other catch. President Trump in China, well, let's just use Asia for the sake of all the nations he went to. What has Mike Jonhson been talking about? They've been talking about a continuing resolution. They're not talking about the new fiscal, they're not talking about the next year's appropriations, etc. They're talking about a continuing resolution. That's what they call a CR, a continuing resolution. A continuing resolution, there's not a continuing resolution. So the budget that President Trump would have been flying on would have stopped on September the 30th, because the new fiscal year starts on October the 1st. President Trump's flying to Asia in late October. There's no continuing resolution. So how's he flying on what the average public, but especially the libtards and the Democrats would say is what? Taxpayer money. They don't have a clue what's been going on with the taxes, etc. But for them and that average crowd out there, that's how the government functions and operates to the average crowd as of right now. So there's no continuing resolution. So President Trump will be flying on a what? IOU. He don't work like that. He don't operate like that, period, even in his personal life. All right? So there's little things like that that can show you. It's all an operation. It's all strategic, special operation, pre-planned. You're watching the distractions. If you're still stuck over here, if you're not seeking to know the laws and the orders of what he's operating with, you're stuck in the past. You're stuck in the distractions. You're stuck in the target audience. You don't have to be. So, again, like I say, Americans have never had so much knowledge in one video. You just haven't in a long time. It's been years. I was watching the Gunsmoke episode a couple days ago. The Fires of Ignorance, I believe is the name of the one episode. You can look it up on YouTube if you have a Paramount account. But in that whole episode, later on in the episode, there's a teacher in there. And he talks about the moment that our education and our schools go away from our foundation, our Declaration of Independence, etc., we've got a lost nation. Same thing our founders said about it. You can go read our quotes from our founders, which I put a lot of quotes in the new book just because. I put a lot of quotes, probably like 3 pages of quotes, in the new book, in the foundational book, where people can hear what our founders said. It's very important that people know what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is your foundation, is your origin, is your history, is the foundation of our nation. It's the foundation of our Declaration, our Constitution, our founders, their thoughts, their ideologies, their mindsets, and why we operate with the same thing. Because if liberals want to use the term Constitution and democracy in the same sentence, they might as well abolish everything and rewrite something new and present it to us and or be willing to what? Fight for it. They ain't done that. They're not doing that. They use the terms in the same sentence, and there's nowhere in our foundation does it talk about democracy except for they're dangerous. In the Federalist Papers, number 10 and number 14. By the what? Father of the Constitution. The man who solely wrote and authored the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and then 26 solo essays in the Federalist Papers, 29 co-authored, all right? The founding father in Federalist Papers 10 and 14, the main author of those, said how democracies are dangerous. You can't get any more clear than that. That alone shows you right there that 99.9% of liberals, they're enemies of the republic. They act like enemies, and they should be treated like that. So, more validation. Again, Law War Manual. President Trump uses the terms occupied territory, which he calls occupied country. He uses white flag of surrender, capitulation, and also puppet government. He and or the media have used those terms in the last 9 years. Never before 2017 did you hear the media use the terms puppet government, white flag of surrender, capitulation. None. And now everybody said, Letitia James in her statement about capitulations. Everywhere there's a proclamation. That's a verbal proclamation, but it's also validation. It's also timestamp, which means you're watching a movie, you're watching theater, you're watching an operation. It's all pre-planned. It's a strategic, pre-planned, strategic special operation. Pre-planned special operation. It's all those. So all those terms President Trump and the media use, they're not government terms, ladies and gentlemen. They're Law of War Manual. President Trump just said yesterday, he said, I don't need laws. I don't need that for what we're doing with these drug vessels. He said it's not a law thing, meaning U.S. law. It's an international law. It's not, you know what, the Democrats say, oh, the law enforcement should handle that. That's not law enforcement's jurisdiction. Maritime jurisdiction is not regular law enforcement jurisdiction. That is how dumb a liberal is, ladies and gentlemen. They're the true enemies of the Republic. And they're just enemies straight off of knowledge. Some of them they're not willing to physically fight. They're just straight up ignorantly with their brains and what they think they call IQ. That's why you shouldn't even engage with them. They would dry up so quick if you would not even, don't get in the algorithms. Don't get in the comment boxes. Just leave it alone. Let them stew with themselves. Because that's all they're going to have left is themselves. They're not going to have anything. They're going to ostracize themselves. They're going to alienate and ostracize themselves just by their rhetoric. Because they don't have their future and your future and our future in mind. They only have it for themselves. See, a guy like me, that's why I say things about Charlie Kirk is this. A guy like me, I can go in the middle of two people and find a way to bring those people together. That's what I've always been known for. I've also been the kind that can say, hey, look, I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're Buddhist. Hey, look, are you hurting someone? You harming someone? No? Okay. Then are you capable of living your life at your house and not trying to influence children and influence everybody else and, take it to the drag queen and all this other stuff? Are you? Yeah, okay, cool. No big deal. Mind your own business, clean up your own backyard, live your life the way you're supposed to live your life. You get in your mirror every morning and make sure that you are what you think you are. First, leave everybody else alone. If they're not harming you physically, hurting, or harming you, what are they doing? You let people control your emotions if you react that way. You don't do that. You have control of your emotions. You have control of your feelings. That's why the Bible says, I didn't give you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. That means you always have to walk around. Now, you can show passion like I do. What I do is passion. This is not an attitude problem. This is passion, right? Trying to wake you up to the things that matter, the things that are wholesome, the things that provide you a foundation, solid thinking, critical, and strategic, and sharpen those and elevate you up. That's like my new book, the Midnight Rider Bible. I was asked to write a book for dummies, and I said, no, I can't do that. I don't truly believe you're a dummy. I don't truly believe you're stupid. I don't truly believe you're ignorant. Truly. I believe that everybody can consume, can read, study, consume, and know something to some capacity. You may not can repeat it like I can, but if you were given a test on paper, I believe that everybody can pass it if you read, study, comprehend. So I don't truly believe that you're dumb, crazy, stupid. I think you can be lazy. I truly believe some people are lazy. I don't think you're truly dumb, truly stupid, and truly ignorant. So I wrote this book. I said, no, I'll elevate people. I did condense it down, and I wrote it in a simple kind of context, meaning that but it's not dummy down. It's everything you need to know, and it elevates you. It uplifts you. It motivates you. It gives you a solid foundation to build on and build from moving forward. So see, that's why everybody has to play your part. You have to know these things, though. And then you'll be able to see what President Trump does. Everything he does is a validation because it's the blueprint. It's not because it's me. It's not because I'm right. It's because I'm operating with the blueprint. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing with the oath of a retired veteran. That's all I'm doing. It's not because, oh, I've got so much knowledge that you don't have. Yeah, maybe, but it's because I have it and I've read it and studied it. You can have it too. You just have to do what? Show initiative and apply the initiative, which means reading, studying, comprehending, if you really want to know. But you should really want to know because that is the face of what President Donald John Trump is. But he's not the end-all, do-all. All right? So I show you these things, like I say about the Charlie Kirk thing, is that, like, you can live and let live, and we can have interstates and highways and infrastructure, bridges, city sidewalks, city streets, buildings, lights, state parks, etc. We can have all those things and have a live and let live society where not everybody is in everybody's business. See, that's the problem. That's what the swamp did. They made everybody fight against our core values. They made you focus on things that don't matter. They do in another kind of context, but they made you focus on things that don't matter. They got you arguing and fighting over patriotism, race, and religion. Those are our core values. I want you to think differently. And here's why. If I'm wrong about the way I believe in God, but I treated you nice, I treated you kind, I was loving, I was patient, I was understanding, I heard you out, I listened to you, I didn't condemn you, I didn't judge you, I didn't do any of those things, I didn't get mad at you for believing something different, none of those. But if you stand on your own 2 feet, that's called integrity. So if you believe that God, listens to AC/DC and has purple hair, then, and I say, I don't know, I think that's sacrilegious, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't yell at you and scream at you and judge you. And I said, okay, you believe what you want to believe? I don't believe that way. I believe God is holy and reverent and this and that. Well, if I get to the gate, those things they call the pearly gates, and the good Lord or St. Peter or whoever's guarding the gate says, are you Derek Jonhson? I'm like, yep, that's me. And he goes, well, we have a little discrepancy here. I'm like, okay, I'll about face and I'll go right on where everybody said I should go. Now, no, we don't mean it like that. No, that was the world judging you. They were doing what they weren't supposed to be doing either. But, right here, this right here. Well, Susie, already in the pearly gates over there, may have been like, oh, I know that guy. That's Derek Jonhson. He stood on his 2 feet. He had integrity in what he believed, but he never condemned me on what I believe, and what I believe got me through the pearly gates. And Susie or Johnny or Timmy or whoever may vouch for me. See, everybody needs a fighter in their corner, even in real life. You need someone who fights for you for the right reasons. That tells you what you need to hear, not just what you want to hear. That is where truth and honesty comes in. We have too many people walking around with tattoos right now that didn't really need a tattoo. Some of y'all look like, you look, come on now. Some tattoos look good on people. Some do. But some of y'all didn't have a good friend to tell you, it looks good on paper, but it ain't going to look good on your cellulite legs. All right? That's honesty. That is real honesty right there. Some of y'all walking around in clothes that don't fit you, and you look like you should be in a Morgan Wallen country music video. All right? If you want to look like that, well, be prepared to be told what you look like. Right? But some of you don't walk around going, you know what, I should dress decently for people, and etc. You should always want someone who says, That's why there was a commercial put out not long ago, it's been a while back, but they had Abraham Lincoln and his wife, and she asked him, it was obviously AI or, a video, duh, right? But for the people out there, they simulated this. They called him Honest Abe for a reason. And in the commercial, she said, does this dress make me look fat? Well, he did what? He went, He didn't want to say yes, but his pause, ladies, that pause, that pause will get you on it, guys. That pause right there, when a woman asks you a question and you pause just the wrong way, and you just, especially when they know you're honest, they got you, right, if you're an honest person. But most of the time, sometimes they'll be like, he was so true. I asked him and I set him up for it, and he was honest, right? Well, in that commercial, he just went, and she ran storming out because his pause. She knew he was honest, and she knew when he paused and he didn't say no, and he didn't say, you look lovely, honey. No, he just paused. She asked him a question. When they asked Hank Williams Jr. on Fox News way back, they asked him what he thought about Obama, and he said, I think he's Hitler. His record label, Monday Night Football canceling, everything. He said, they asked me a question. What was I supposed to say? You asked me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. All right, now, he could have danced around that. He could have dodged it. He could have buttered it up a little bit. He could have sugar-coated it. But that ain't what honest people do. And that's the people you want and need in your life. Not only should you want them in your life, you need them in your life. You need people like me in your life. I'm not here to, I can be your friend and I will be your friend, but I'm not, you're not living with me, right? I don't have to appeal to you from multiple personal levels. I'm here to show you what President Donald John Trump's working with, what the military works with, what the government's actually working, the good kind, the small kind, the lower kind, not the big, not the swamp and all that. It's what you should want. That's what you need in your life. It's honesty. Then you'll be able to hear all these things and see all these things. You'll divorce your feelings and your emotions, because that's all President Trump has done, is validated all along the way. You need honesty. So the Law of War Manual, let's get back to that. I went on this great little thing, all right, for a reason. Law of War Manual. All right, the border thing. That's so funny. They had quote-unquote Joe say, when he was asked a question about the border, oh, you mean the border thing? The border thing. Like, that was so hilarious. He said, well, I've asked Congress to send me a bill. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need a bill for the border. You don't need funding for the border. The only reason you need funding for the border is for what? Pay for the border security, which they wouldn't be working if they weren't getting paid. All right, so they are being paid. The wall, all right, well, before the wall, right, what else would funding be needed for? Barbed wire? That they never really did. What did Obama do, though? Obama did the cages. Obama did that. Cages. Separating families and putting these people in cages like they were animals. Obama did that. You don't hear the liberals talking about that. They don't want to talk about it because they know it's the truth. All right? The border thing. Oh, you mean the border thing? And, oh, yeah, well, I've asked Congress to send me a bill. You don't need a bill. You're the president. If he was the president, he wasn't, but if he was, same authority, same power as every other president. Shut the border down. Shut it down. One phone call. That's it. Little things like that. Now, right now, what's funny? Redistricting. So you got Governor Newsom, right, quote unquote. All these people think that's real. It's not. All right, they're talking about redistricting. They got old quote unquote Kamala talking about, oh, the Republicans are rigging the election, they're rigging this, they're rigging the redistricting, No. Listen what you're hearing. Listen. Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency by President Trump, September 12, 2018. That was one of those executive orders that was continued by quote-unquote Joe just to hand back to President Trump January 20, 2025. In 2018, Title 32, a federal National Guard call-up by the President, was invoked for the 2018 election, 2020, 2022, and 2024. Why did quote-unquote Joe continue a Title 32 federal National Guard call-up in 2022 and 2024 by President Trump? Makes no sense. If you know laws and orders, that would make no sense. Military can only be at the polls on official capacity, official duty, federal duty, because it's a federal law. It's not anything else. Title 18 is federal. Title 18 is federal laws, federal criminal procedures. Federal! That one thing alone shows you this is an operation. The whole thing. The Title 32 was put into place in 2018 for the 2018-2020 elections. But quote-unquote Joe, the National Guard were also at the 2022 and 2024 elections. Same Title 32 order, ladies and gentlemen. President Trump filed via the state of Texas, a place he's never lived in, via the state of Texas through the United States Supreme Court in December 2020 versus 7 swing states. Every one of those swing states from 2020, those 7 were the same 7 swing states of this past election. You know what the redistricting is, ladies and gentlemen? That's undoing what the deep state did to set up these swing states. They redistrict to where they could swing, make these things called swing states. And you and I, who have lived long before 2017, but were adults who heard these terms all these years, a swing state, oh, these are the swing states. That was the quote-unquote democracy of the deep state. That was their system. That was their rigging. That is what President Trump has exposed. It's already been done. Those 7 swing states prove it. He filed through the state of Texas, the United States Supreme Court, versus those 7 states, the same 7 swing states of 2024. What you're seeing right now with all the redistricting was the evidence they got from those states, which they already had them. But for the people who don't know that, that's what that would be, is the evidence of that. Oh, well, here's what they're doing, and here's how they did it, and here's the seat they did it with, etc., etc., etc. Texas 2024. President Trump with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general. The adjutant general gives it all away. The adjutant general reports to the governor unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10. The only Title 10 orders in place for the border is Proclamation 9844 from February 2019. And then Executive Orders 13912 and 13919. All right, Title 10s and those. Title 10, Section 12302 and 12304. Reserve components. That would have been a breach of national security if President Trump was a former president on a sitting president at the border, which is a federal issue. That would have been a breach of national security if President Trump was a former president and quote-unquote Joe was a sitting president. It also would have been a violation of Executive Order 13848, which is interference, election interference. Because guess what 2024 was? Election year. Logan Act. It was President Trump. He was on the debate. He said, it was you, Joe. It was you, Joe, who told Obama about the Logan Act. It was you, Joe, who told Obama, and y'all used the Logan Act on General Michael Flynn. It was you, Joe. From April 2024 to December 2024, President Donald John Trump met with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times at Mar-a-Lago or Trump Tower, which is a private establishment. The Logan Act. is private correspondence with a foreign leader. If President Donald John Trump was a former president, that would have been a violation, and the whole world witnessed it as it was all over the news. They asked old quote-unquote Joe during that time, what do you think about President Trump meeting with these leaders? Oh, he's trying to one-up me for the presidency. The presidency that he dropped out of, quote-unquote. Come on, people. They cannot put this any more clearer. If President Trump was a former president, they put this for the whole world to see, him meeting 12 foreign leaders 13 different times. A clear violation of the Logan Act that Obama and Joe, the real ones, destroyed one single person with. A 3-star general who was their director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. You don't think they wouldn't have done it to the man they call a dictator, a king, a fascist, a Nazi, a communist, a threat? Come on, people! This is that easy. This is so... You should be so pumped up and excited to know, especially if you're Republican, especially if you're conservative, especially if you think you're a patriot. You should be so pumped up. Don't matter that you don't have justice yet and you ain't seen anything yet. It's because you want it on your time, your term, and on your standards. It don't work like that. It is operating. It is happening. It is being reset. That way there's no loopholes and there's no repercussions from the deep state, what's left of it, the low-level libtards out there that think they have a foothold. They don't. They're a small group of people. Do not let them think they're bigger than what they are. Their bark is not nowhere. They don't even have a bite, most of them, but the ones that bite you, you don't even want them getting near you because they ugly as hell and they look like freak shows, so you wouldn't even want that. So don't let them have any more clearance of their voice. They don't have one because they don't have a foundation. Therefore, you should have what? You should have a foundation where you know what you're standing on, what you're watching, what you're witnessing. You're watching biblical, monumental, historical history take place. And they show it to you right there. The Logan Act is one of the key things that if President Trump was a dictator, king, fascist, communist, Nazi, threat, there was clear evidence for the whole freaking world to see that President Trump's meeting with all these prime ministers and presidents and leaders when quote-unquote Joe was supposed to be a sitting president in an election year, which would have also been election interference again. 99% of the military operations taking place as we speak right now, 99% of all military operations, guess where the orders are? 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Every single one of them. The Venezuelan drug vessels, the drug trafficking, Southern Command, April the 1st, 2020. The Enhanced Counter-Narcotics Operation launched. Executive Order 13919, April the 30th, 2020. Executive Order 13912, March the 27th, 2020. All under what? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, December the 20th, 2019, which was also the same date as what? The Space Force being established. You can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. It's laws and orders. It's the visual validation of the dash. That's why Obama's all of a sudden, man, he's posting left and right now. Where was he from 2021 to 2025? Why wasn't he posting left and right? Where were they? They weren't posting left and right anywhere. He and Hillary, now all of a sudden they're just posting all the time. X, just, and they're talking about the election. They're talking about getting out and vote for this. They're just adding to it, ladies and gentlemen. They're setting the stage. This is all setting the stage. James Comey hasn't posted on his X account since June the 10th. He's a telltale. But people out there saw what? You saw all these videos floating around of him. Oh, I'm going to fight Donald Trump and this. His videos were where? Mainstream media. They weren't on his account with 1.1 million followers. See, so what my job is to do is to get you out of the target audience. If you want out of the target audience and you want out of the distraction pieces and you want to sit on the side that you can see that, oh, that's a distraction. That's key. That's a distraction. That's a validation. That's operational. That's strategic. That's clandestine. That's covert. That's everything that was clandestine and covert that they put out to the public, that someone like me could have said, hey, that would have been clandestine operation. That would have been a covert. Anything that's public is public knowledge. Means they made it public. They want you to know about it. But see, so many Americans do not know just your basic core functions and operations of government. You definitely don't know anything about the military. A lot of veterans don't know strategies and tactics of unconventional and irregular warfare. That don't mean they weren't a good soldier doing what they were doing. It takes a full team. There has to be a cook. There has to be all kinds of people. You know, that's why all these veterans out there slamming people because they didn't do this or they didn't do that. They're not a true veteran. They're missing the whole point of being a veteran or being a service member. It's not to put down anybody what they didn't do, what they didn't see, and didn't do what you did, etc. Everybody plays a part. But you also need to know that there are strategies and tactics that are unconventional and irregular first and unconventional second. All right, clandestine and covert. All right, that's a whole other layer of military. All right, so just because your cousin, your auntie, your uncle, your daddy, your papa, your grandpa, whoever was a veteran and never heard of something like this, that don't mean a thing. That don't mean a thing. They should know it, and they should want to know it if they don't know it. It don't take away from their service. Don't want to do that. That ain't what's happening. But President Trump has had to rebuild the military and eliminate the military-industrial complex because we have too many soldiers who think they're fighting for other reasons and they're not. Your service is for your God, your nation, your state, your community, your family, your friends, then yourself. It's not the other way around. And too many people put it the other way around. We have to reestablish a team concept as a whole. The Constitution was written broadly for a reason. It wasn't supposed to get personal lives into government. That's called politics. That's not government. The only good government is a small government, and even then it can have bad with it. But the smaller, the better. All right? But again, politics is when you take all the things that should not be in government and put it there. We have to remove that always and keep that out always. That's why things like public speakers who are just riling you up and just ruffling your feathers and or, straightening your feathers, meaning like fitting what you want to hear, fitting your narrative, fitting your agenda, fitting your context, that don't help you either. It don't help you either. You need someone who's well-rounded but knows what's going on lawfully, the good laws. And we need to eliminate the bad laws like Abraham Lincoln said. And we should never have to enforce a bad law just to wake people up. Hang on that a moment. There are bad laws that the deep state and the swamp put into place. We shouldn't have to enforce a bad law just to wake people up. So if people would chew into, bite into, consume, live and breathe what you're supposed to know as a United States American, as a United States citizen, civilian. If you know those core things, we wouldn't ever have to get to this place again. And that's what it's going to take to maintain and sustain what the 45-47 Strategic and Special Operation has done. So I highly recommend, again, I know I'm advertising, but I'm the only one with them, but they're for good reasons. All right. This is part 1, part 2. They outline the 45-47. My new book called The Midnight Rider Bible. It is every core, basic, everything of our origin, our history, of our legislation, our 3 branches of government, and also military that you need to know, law-wise. It don't have, I put 1 or 2 excerpts in there as a definitive what it means, but it's not heavy, oh, you should and you should. Nothing like that. It's just straight up foundation for every American, even liberals, even Democrats. Everybody should have it. Everybody should have that basic core foundation, structure, origin, history, ideologies of our founders. Our founders are the ones who wrote all this genius and brilliant ideology that we live and walk, breathe. But so many have misconstrued it, have watered it down. They don't know the true meaning of the words, the language, the verbiage, the context, the terminology, the definitions, the index, the glossary. They all matter. So I'd highly recommend that. I also, this is kind of funny, I got this new book here. This is cool. This is my Liberal Hypocrisy, the Deplorable Pilgrims. And this is for, future, and also for children. I wrote it from the standpoint to where, if you hear this rhetoric, you probably need to squash it pretty quick, because you're dealing with a liberal. And if you give them an inch, they will take 1 trillion miles and skull drag your IQ the whole way. So that's how you prevent getting into all these big conversations out there and all these big arguments and debates that lead to your confrontational type figures. That's what prevents that. We don't need that. We don't need that in anybody's life. If you can mind your own business, clean up your own backyard, and live and let live, and do what you're supposed to do as a civilian with your town, with your community, wherever. So we'll start with your family first, your neighborhood, your community, your town, your county, your city, right? Your state. Then when we get all those foundations, the power back to the people, the correct way, the right way, the wholesome way, then our federal will represent us. Because when we fix that foundation, then the federal, they have to represent us, or us will do what? You're out of here. You're fired. You're not being reelected. Voila, plain and simple. So make sure you're following the correct pages. Linktree, LINKTR, period, EE/1776 Nation. All right, that's all my accounts. All right, make sure you're following the correct ones. All right, make sure to go report the fake ones. If you see a fake one that's not on that Linktree, report it. All right, especially the YouTube that's taking all my videos with 16-something thousand subscribers. All right, they're taken away from that. They also have fake, fraudulent accounts up that are leading people over to fake, fraud accounts. There's no telling what they're messaging people. God knows what they're messaging people. But I don't do that. I don't do any of that. I don't have subscriptions for a reason. I am simply doing what God commanded me to do, and the others who are in command of me. I am keeping my oath the way that I'm supposed to keep my oath. But you don't have to be a veteran. You don't have to be anything military to know what's going on. You don't have to. You should respect that and appreciate that we do have to keep our military. We do have to have that militia. We do have to keep that. So be careful who you're listening to and who you're following, because majority of them are just blowing smoke up your dress. Majority. There's a few out there are good ones, but majority of them, they're just keeping the drama stirred and the propaganda stirred, and they're only seeking your attention the wrong ways. And you got to learn internet and artificial intelligence especially, but internet algorithms. The more you comment, the more a post is made visible. That's why my comments should be flooded, because I'm doing everything the right way, consistently, for the people, by the people, and with the people. All right. These other people are not doing that. They just want the algorithms, they want the faces, and they're just post. You don't need that in your life. You need quality, and you need consistency in your life. That's what 1776 Nation, Rattletrap 1776, Derek Jonhson Country, that's all I do, is provide that foundation for you. So no one has any excuses. No one. So we'll see you guys soon.